20-year-old University of Pittsburgh student Sudiksha Konanki vanished before sunrise while visiting the Dominican Republic for spring break with a group of classmates. She was last seen walking along a Punta Cana beach just after 4 o'clock in the morning on March 6th. Just prior to disappearing, Konanki went swimming with a 22-year-old lifeguard named Joshua Ribe. According to news reports, Ribe, who met Konanki that night, told police that a large wave had overpowered them and a strong tide had pulled them out into the ocean. He claimed that he had pulled Konanki toward the shore and that he last saw her walking toward dry land in knee-deep water at a diagonal angle. Ribe said that he believed Konanki had gathered her things and left, and that he didn't hear her response when he asked if she was okay because he was vomiting all the water that he had swallowed. He told investigators that he passed out as soon as he got to shore, and surveillance footage showed him returning to his room hours later. Authorities reportedly believe Konanki drowned, but for now, the search continues. Number 14. John Adamo. 2 Berkeley Township, New Jersey residents are fighting for their lives after 54-year-old John Adamo fatally shot his next-door neighbors and then succumbed to a bullet wound himself. Described by other neighbors as a combative alcoholic who was entangled in a years-long feud with the victims, Adamo killed Tom and Jill Kwiatkowski shortly before 5 o'clock p.m. on Monday, March 10th. The Kwiatkowskis were airlifted to the emergency room and are reportedly fighting for their lives. Meanwhile, a SWAT team attempted to negotiate with Adamo for 2.5 hours before blowing his front door off and finding him dead inside his $1 million home. Local residents believe Adamo may have been triggered by surveillance cameras and no trespassing signs that the Kwiatkowskis had recently installed on their property. According to one neighbor, the cameras were pointed toward Adamo's home and the signs called him and his wife out by name. Sources familiar with the parties involved praised the Kwiatkowskis while telling reporters that Adamo had been estranged from his family for years due to his alleged alcoholism. Whether the victims pull through remains to be seen. Number 13. Breionna Cassell. A Newton County, Indiana woman is sharing a harrowing story of survival. After spending 6 days trapped in her wrecked car praying that help would eventually arrive, 41-year-old mother of 3 Breionna Cassell was found clinging to life by a Good Samaritan nearly a week after falling asleep at the wheel and crashing into a ditch. The impact of the collision crushed the car's dashboard, pinning her in place and shattering her left arm and legs. Cassell's cell phone was just out of reach and the battery had died long before she was found. She was just yards away from a busy bridge, but was out of sight and went unnoticed by the hundreds of motorists who passed by overhead on a daily basis. Cassell later told the New York Times that she thought she was going to die as she waited helplessly for rescue. At times she could hear her own husband calling out her name, but she was too weak and dehydrated to respond loudly enough to catch his attention. She was airlifted to the emergency room and is expected to make a full recovery. Number 12. Jennifer Wilson. A nearly 350-pound Michigan woman has been sentenced to prison time for sitting on her 91-pound foster son and crushing him to death because he was misbehaving. 48-year-old Jennifer Lee Wilson had been looking after Dakota Levi Stevens for just a month when she called 911 in April 2024 and reported that the young boy had become motionless. She was reportedly in a visibly distraught state as she told police that Stevens had been acting up after fleeing to a neighbor's house earlier that morning. According to news reports, Stevens had asked the neighbors to adopt him, claiming that his caretakers hit him in the face. Wilson admitted to lying on top of Stevens, who was less than 1/3 her weight, for several minutes to prevent him from leaving again. Stevens eventually stopped screaming for help, and Wilson claimed that she thought he was faking injury until she noticed that his eyelids had gone pale. She pleaded guilty to reckless homicide and was sentenced to 6 years in prison with 1 year suspended to be served on probation. Number 11. Kimberly Sullivan. A Connecticut stepmom is accused of holding her adult stepson captive for decades after the emaciated victim set their Waterbury home on fire in a desperate attempt to alert someone to his need for help. 56-year-old Kimberly Sullivan was arrested on Wednesday, March 12th, roughly a month after firefighters responded to the blaze and discovered the shocking situation inside. They knew there were problems inside the home other than the fire when they pulled the visibly underweight victim out of the residence. The 32-year-old man, who weighed just 68 pounds, told investigators that he set the fire on purpose from inside a cramped storage space where he claimed Sullivan forced him to sleep. He accused his stepmother of holding him captive since the age of 11 and that he was starved, deprived of medical care and abused the entire time. The mistreatment reportedly worsened in the last year following the death of the victim's father. Sullivan is facing a laundry list of criminal charges including first-degree assault, second-degree kidnapping, first-degree unlawful restraint, cruelty to persons, and first-degree reckless endangerment. She is maintaining her innocence and plans to fight her case. Number 10. Road rage in West Philly. Police in West Philadelphia are on the lookout for an irate driver who opened fire on 2 victims during a road rage incident just after 7:00 p.m. on Monday, March 10th. Described by authorities as a bearded black man in his 40s, the suspect shot a woman in her 20s and a teenage boy during a confrontation at an intersection. Both victims were treated for their injuries at a nearby hospital and are said to be in stable condition. Surveillance footage appears to show the man following the victim's car in a silver 2016 or 2017 Honda Civic with a missing passenger side hubcap. While sticking his head out the window, there's also visible damage to both of the vehicle's front quarter panels and a white vanity license plate on the front bumper. Police have released a security video in hopes that members of the public will come forward with information that will help identify and locate the suspect, who remains at large. Number 9. Prom dress heist gone wrong. A fight over a second-hand prom dress devolved into pure chaos in Gwinnett County, Georgia, resulting in the arrests of the 3 young women involved. The altercation occurred at a racetrack gas station roughly 30 miles outside of Atlanta, where an 18-year-old woman met with 20-year-old Morgan Flincham to sell her the dress. Flincham had previously owned the garment, but the victim's mother had helped pay for it, which was why it was in the victim's possession. At the beginning of the meeting, Flincham reportedly asked the victim if they could go into the bathroom so she could try the dress on. The victim agreed, only to be ambushed by one of Flincham's friends, who was lying in wait inside the restroom. Flincham's co-conspirator snatched the dress and ran, and the confrontation only intensified when the victim chased after the women. During the physical fight that ensued, one of the perps could be seen choke holding the victim, who flipped her attacker over and onto their back. Flincham and her accused accomplices, Kaylee George and Leela DeJagger, are all facing theft by taking charges, while Flincham and DeJagger are also charged with battery. Number 8. Maegan Hall. In a surprising update to a story we've covered before on this channel, a former Tennessee police officer who was fired for her multiple extramarital trysts with colleagues is now working as a pharmacy technician. 29-year-old Maegan Hall made national news headlines in 2023 after she lost her job with the Laverna Police Department for her wild romps with at least 6 male co-workers. She went on to win a $500,000 lawsuit settlement after accusing her former colleagues of grooming her to be available at their disposal. Maegan was licensed to work as a pharmacy technician prior to joining the police force and has reportedly gone back to her previous profession now that she's no longer working as a cop. She's still living in the same house she was sharing with her husband, Jedediah, at the time the scandal broke. Jedediah vocally supported his wife in previous interviews, but it's unclear whether the couple are still together, as they both appear to be living a low-key existence after unexpectedly landing in the spotlight more than 2 years ago. Number 7. Jeff Zinne. A Montana family is mourning the untimely demise of 37-year-old husband and father Jeff Zinne, who plunged to his death on Monday, March 10th after a ski lift malfunction at Red Lodge Mountain in Carbon County. Zinne was riding alone on a 3-person chair when a mechanical problem sent him plummeting to the ground below. He died from his injuries at a nearby hospital, leaving behind a wife, Megan, and a 2-year-old son. While authorities have not specified the exact nature of the mechanical issue or how it caused Zinne to fall out of his seat, outdoor conditions were reportedly rough, with winds gusting in excess of 50 miles per hour on the morning of the accident. Some of the resort's lifts were closed due to the inclement weather, and Zinne's fall prompted a large-scale evacuation of the lifts that were still open, with ski patrol units lowering occupants to the ground one by one using a manual rope system. A spokesperson declined to comment on the matter, citing an ongoing investigation. Number 6. Delange Augustin. In the latest of what seems like an endless stream of poorly behaved air travelers in recent years, an American Airlines passenger's bizarre behavior was recorded on video during a seemingly possessed outburst on March 10th. 31-year-old Delange Augustin began acting out just moments after the Miami-bound aircraft took off from Savannah, Georgia, prompting concerned onlookers to intervene out of a concern for the safety of everyone aboard. Footage captured by a witness shows Augustin yelling, wildly swinging his arms and legs, and swallowing a rosary while passengers pinned him to the floor. In the meantime, his sister stood nearby and chanted. Rob Rosenberg, who helped subdue Augustin, described the chanting as eerie hymns and the ordeal in general as a very, very, very disturbing scene. He also referred to the situation as probably the most disturbing thing he had ever seen. Rosenberg later told CBS Miami that he initially became concerned when Augustin began yelling about demons. Thanks to the swift intervention of onlookers, no one was seriously harmed. Augustin was treated at the hospital for the rosary beads he ingested and is facing multiple charges, including misdemeanor battery and criminal property damage. Number 5. Richard Allen. We previously covered the infamous Delphi murders case, which ended with the conviction and life imprisonment of suspect Richard Allen for the horrific double murder of 2 teenage girls in Delphi, Indiana. In a much-anticipated update, a fuller version of an infamous cell phone video featuring the killer has been released by our website, advocating for Alan's innocence. In the 43-second clip, victims Abigail Abby Williams and Liberty Libby German could be heard whispering to each other about the suspected killer who was following them from a short distance. One of the girls, identified as Williams, whispered, "Is he right there? Don't leave me," before German commented about how the man had a gun. German then nervously said out loud, "There's no path going there, so we have to go down here," before the man in the background ordered the girls to go down the hill, at which point the video ended. Although Alan confessed to the murders, which took place in February 2017, he is now claiming that his confession was coerced and is reportedly in the process of appealing his case. Number 4. Caleb McCray. A young man is dead and another is facing potential prison time following a hazing that went awry among members of a fraternity at Southern University in Louisiana. Charges against additional suspects are forthcoming, according to a Baton Rouge police spokesperson who provided details of the incident during a recent press conference. 20-year-old fraternity pledge and marching band member Caleb Wilson died in late February from a fatal seizure that occurred during a hazing ritual, which involved being repeatedly punched in the chest at a local warehouse. According to law enforcement, witnesses initially lied about the nature and location of McCray's medical emergency, claiming that he had simply collapsed in a public park. 23-year-old Caleb McCray turned himself in after being identified as a suspect and is currently free on bond while facing manslaughter and criminal hazing charges. 2 other fraternity members, Isaiah Smith and Kyle Thurman, were subsequently booked on criminal felony hazing charges and are also currently free on bond. All 3 men are accused of changing Wilson's clothing before they took him to the emergency room and leaving the hospital before they could be questioned about what happened. Number 3. Alexandra Bialousow. 40-year-old Alexandra Bialousow of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, is facing criminal charges for allegedly starting a forest fire that consumed over 2,000 acres of wilderness and put hundreds of homes at risk. Her arrest came after neighbors within the Covington Lakes subdivision claimed to see her starting the blaze near a tree line in her backyard fire pit. Bialousow reportedly failed to take proper precautions to prevent the fire's debris from spreading to nearby foliage, which enabled the blaze to quickly spread to a neighboring property. She's also accused of lacking garden tools or an appropriate water source to control the fire with. Before long, the flames have spread out of control, engulfing the tree line and spewing smoke into the sky. According to the most recent available updates, the fire is 55% contained. Bialousow was arrested on 2 arson-related charges and is currently free after posting a $15,000 bond. Number 2. Robert Davis. An Iowa man is facing a first-degree murder charge in the cold case disappearance of his former girlfriend, Barbara Lenz, who vanished in 1989 at the age of 31. 61-year-old Robert Davis, who was 26 at the time, allegedly threatened to kill Lenz if she ever left him. And although the victim's body has never been found, prosecutors apparently believe they have enough evidence to secure a conviction against the accused killer. Davis is the last known person to see Lenz alive. He told investigators that he dropped Lenz off at her Woodbine apartment ahead of her plans to visit the father of her young daughter. Police later discovered that Davis had a violent history, including previous assaults against Lenz. He admitted to some of the incidents, including one which occurred in public. Witnesses reported Davis's strange behavior in the days following Lenz's disappearance. One person even claimed to see Davis and his brother burying something wrapped in plastic at a rural property. He's currently being held without bail at the Harrison County Jail as he awaits his next court date. Number 1. Jonathan Belk. A Tennessee husband stands accused of murdering an 18-year-old man after catching the victim in bed with his wife during the early morning hours. 41-year-old Jonathan Belk is facing criminal charges for fatally stabbing Billie Jean Floyd, as well as for the stabbing of his 31-year-old wife, Jada Golston, who survived the attack. According to court documents, Golston initially told police that a man had jumped on Floyd, whose body was found stuffed in a garbage can outside her and Belk's home. Officers arrived at the residence to find Belk standing at the doorway covered in blood, at which point they learned that he was Golston's husband. Belk reportedly told investigators that he was worried that he might have ruined his marriage because he offed Floyd, but he's facing much bigger problems now, including a potential lifetime behind bars, and is currently being held without bond at the Sequatchie County Jail as he awaits a bond hearing which is scheduled for March 21st.